My biological father, Matt Pat, stated in his pop culture shifting icon of a video, "The minions in Minions aren't minions."
What?
That according to Facebook.com, there are now 10,400 minions under the command of Gru. Or I guess Drew right this second based on the ending of Despicable Me 3.
I thought you were going to pee your pants!
10,400 is way too many minions to name, even for me. But according to that same video, most of that massive number is made up of minion clones, copies of the original tribe. So assuming the clones all have the same names as the originals, which it's gonna be confusing either way, I don't know, don't think about that part too hard, I can stick with only naming the original 230 minions, which was a number also cited in that film theory video.
I just simultaneously whipped a Nene!
Meaning if I can find 230 unique names across all the Despicable Me canon, I can determine the name of every minion. Now when I say canon, I don't just mean the movies. I'm talking about shorts, comics, video games, books, TikToks, even commercials. I've watched it all. If there was a minion on the screen, I have seen it. Oh, and by the way, I'm recording this before Despicable Me 4 comes out, as you can probably already tell. So if that or any other piece of Illumination Media adds new minions, I'll do a short sometime after the movie comes out. Alright, let's get it started. Time to get absolutely despicable. We're naming every single minion.
Oh, Despicable Me.
As the Minions were becoming the absolute powerhouses of marketing they are today, the Despicable Me series slowly morphed into the Minions series, in both name and philosophy. After the second Despicable Me movie, we begin to see more and more Minions moving the actual plot of these films. To me, there are 5 Minions that really move the plot, so let's start with them. I believe if I went up to a stranger on the street and I said, "Hey you, name a Minion," one, they'd be freaked out, and shortly after, they're gonna say Kevin, who we meet in the second Despicable Me movie.
Ooh, Kevin!
Ooh, Chavo!
The second on the list is my favorite Minion, Stu, aka
Stuart!
Stu is in almost everything Despicable Me and Minion. I didn't check this for sure, but I'm almost certain he has more spotlight across the series than any other Minion. But most of all, Stu is a mother effing vibe. Look at bro.
Yo, Stuart!
Next on the list we have Bob, who at the time of his design was the smallest Minion. I got a plush of him in his cute little Kill Bill outfit. They made the goggles hard on there, which I don't like that on plushes. I wish they were soft little guys. I cuddle Bob. But yeah, he's a big cutie. He's also notable for his heterochromia, something that we'll talk about more later in the video. There's also Mel, who seems to lead the Minions in Despicable Me 3, both walking out on Gru and flying back to Gru, saving him during his fight with Balthazar Brat.
I've been a bad boy!
And then there's Otto, the most incompetent, stress-inducing minion there is. He just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. But why don't we see Otto in any of the original Despicable Me movies? Those movies, of course, take place after Rise of Gru in the timeline, but there's no sign of Otto anywhere in those films. Is it possible that he's not around anymore? So if Otto is dead, then how? How do minions die? If anyone besides my father knows, it's Gru. So in what I have named the Eel O'Neill theory, after the fellow minion scholar who discovered it, I believe that Gru grew tired of Otto's incompetence, and like I said earlier, got rid of him. Maybe he got him with the freeze ray and shipped him back off to the cave, but unless Despicable Me 4 explains something or Otto shows up, I think we can blame the mini-boss for this disappearance. I'd get rid of him too though. Otto is so annoying.
Blah, blah, blah.
You had one job, Otto. You lost the stone. You had one job. Now that those 5 are out of the way, let me shift over to something a little more obscure, something you may not be familiar with: Minions books and comics. In fact, we'll kick it off with the most obscure minion, in my opinion, my minion opinion, one I haven't found anyone else talking about. During the story Rockabilly Banana in the Minions Evil Panic graphic novel, we bear witness to a poster of this Elvis-looking minion with a signature that reads Johnny. Now, when I was looking at the comics in general, something kind of strange came to light. There's a second Kevin. This Kevin has one eye. Not the letter, I mean, both are spelled the same, they both have one eye. But when I saw these three advertised as the classic trio of Bob, Kevin, and Stuart in the description, I got confused.
What?
And that's when it dawned on me that this is just a second Kevin. He doesn't look the same as the Kevin in the Minions movies, but his name is definitely Kevin. In fact, in Super Banana Games on page 15, we can clearly see him labeled as Kevin M, implying, to me at least, that this second Kevin's full name is Kevin Minion, similar in a way to Sans Undertale.
He's silly. He's a funny guy. I don't know about hot.
This second Kevin is also the very first minion referred to by name in Despicable Me, spoken by Gru shortly after assembling the minions. I'm also like 80% sure that this Kevin is the one in Minion Mayhem, the ride at Universal Studios. He's the one that zaps you, pew, and turns you into a minion, but you turn back at the end of the ride, so you are not on the list. Congratulations. Or I'm sorry, I guess, if you wanted to make the funny minions. In the Minions Who's the Boss book, we meet Dave, Paul, Carl, and Mike. These are also the minions named at the very beginning of the Minions movie. Mike is also one of the stars of Panic in the Mailroom, a short included on the Blu-ray release of Despicable Me 2. While Dave, one of the horniest minions, statistically,
Earth to Dave.
is all throughout the first two Despicable Me films and the surrounding media. I'd probably say that besides Stuart, we see Dave more than any other minion, the number 2 minion. The back of the book Mower Minions references Liam, while the book itself names Jerry. But this Jerry looks way different from a second Jerry that we confirmed in the third film looks like this. The Jerry from the Mower Minions book, however, also seems to be the one that was featured in toy form at McDonald's in promotion of Despicable Me 2. Phil from the book Minions Paradise, Phil Saves the Holidays, is also the main character of the Minions Paradise mobile game. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Turns out there's also a second Phil who only has one eye and is featured in Competition, a short from the Blu-ray version of the Minions movie. The official Minion Manual, also used to promote Despicable Me 2, names the following minions: Carl, Phil, Dave, who we named already, but we also meet Tim and Tom. Tom is featured in the Minions movie as well as the book Attack of the Evil Minion, where he gets turned into the titular evil minion. He's also in the novelization of Despicable Me 2 as well as the film itself, where again he's the very first minion we see turn evil, plus the last minion we see turn back in the climax. Tim is shouted out for his nice haircut in Despicable Me 2 and makes a sly remark in the opening cutscene of the Despicable Me video game.
I heard that, Tim.
He's also featured in a short that's found on the bonus features of the original Despicable Me movie, titled Orientation Day. That short also features a Kevin that looks a lot smaller than the one we've grown accustomed to, and a Bob with only one eye, meaning we can add a third Kevin and a second Bob to the list. While we're on the subject though, there's also a third Bob who's slightly wider than the Bob we know from the Minions movie, but has a similar heterochromia. We meet who I'm calling Bob number 3, but I guess it's technically Bob number 2 during the end credits of Despicable Me 2, when him, Kevin, and Stuart are auditioning for the Minion movie. He's also featured near the beginning of Despicable Me 3, according to the closed captioning. Speaking of Despicable Me 3, in Chapter 16 of the novelization of that film, Mel is talking to the other minions and seemingly calls one Peter, which I did not notice being said in the actual movie. Panic in the Mailroom, the short we mentioned earlier, also features Ken, who's a gamer. There's another short that's included in the physical release of Rise of Gru called Postmodern Minion, which features Claude and, according to the credits, his friend Jeff. But alright, now that that's out of the way, enough stalling. I know what you came here for. Time to name all the minions, the ones we haven't mentioned of course, that we meet in the Minion and Despicable Me feature-length films. Starting with the first Despicable Me, we mentioned Short Kevin earlier, but just after Gru talks to him, he also greets Billy and Larry. Mark is later assigned with the aforementioned Tim and Phil to get Agnes a new unicorn toy. In Despicable Me 2, Gru tells Donnie to hang in there near the start of the film. We also meet Lance for the first time, who blows a raspberry at Gru's question about Kevin.
Where the heck is Kevin?
Near the climax of Despicable Me 3, Mel orders around Mill, Robert, and John. When the Minion movie starts, the narrator introduces us to Norbert, who he calls an idiot.
He's an idiot.
Tony and Chris are two of the minions in the ice cave avoiding Hitler at the start of the film. What? Yeah, it's interesting to me that Napoleon was the last bad guy that they chose to show the minions teaming with. Makes sense, honestly. They do the same thing in the Who's the Boss book. They don't even refer to Napoleon by his name. They call him Little General. Even though Minions Seek and Find, as well as the Minions Ultimate Activity book, have the stones to call the man by his name. But yeah, working with Hitler was a no-go. They couldn't show the Minions getting down with that. But yeah, Tony and Chris, those were two of the ones hiding in that ice cave from fascism. Henry gets frozen in the ice on the Minion tribe's journey to England. You can see a picture of Eric in Kevin's wallet, along with what's clearly a second Eric there in the background. Definitely not just the same asset reused. No way. It's two Erics. Moving on to Minions Rise of Gru, Ryan loudly rides a jackhammer past little boy Gru near the beginning of the movie, and then we also meet Adrian, Joe, and Mac in that same scene. Later on in the movie, Josh is spinning the hits as the DJ. I also think that we should take a minute to mention the Chicken Minion, which no, doesn't have a unique name, even though some people call him Stu Jr. That's not his name. No, it's Chicken Minion. But a grown version of this foul beast could blend into a crowd of minions Where's Waldo style pretty easily. Like take for instance this iconic picture. Could you really pick our feathered friend out of the back section of the crowd there? You know what, let's try harder. Enhance. Oh, yeah, there he is right there. And maybe the chicken DNA shortened the Chiminion's lifespan, explaining the plot hole that plagues many a Minion fan. Where this mother clucker's at in the Despicable Me trilogy. Like Otto, this could be explained in Despicable Me 4. But either way, I like Funny Chicken Minion. He's cute, and his father, Stu, that's gang for real. Funny Chicken Minion, he's going on the list. Now that we've had that difficult conversation, back to auxiliary media we go, and Jorge is a playable character in the Nintendo DS game Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. In the weekly web series Saturday Morning Minions, in episode 23 Balloonatics,
inflation,
we hear Minions say this, which to me, your local Minion expert, sounds like Minionese for Stop It, Bobby, which I don't think is a Stu Stewart situation where the same character is called by both his full name and his nickname throughout the series. I've heard the Bob we know and love referred to as King Bob, Sea Bob, Little Bob, but never Bobby. So I think this is a different, much more devious Minion. Illumination also produced a series of shorts for YouTube and TikTok called Who's Who, narrated by Gru himself. Over the course of 4 episodes, they name or show the following minions. I'm not counting repeated assets here, because boy, there are a lot, and there's already a ton of names here. Some of which, honestly, are not your typical minion names, so if I mispronounce any, I am sorry. There's Bill, Maurice, Brett, second Brett with a goatee, Sam, Ernst? Did they really misspell Ernest, or am I just dumb? Bruno, Cinco, Andre, Joe, Neil, Juan, Willie, Harry, David, Jude, aka New Jude, Ziggy, Nobu, Pablo, Rod, Joey, Sonny, Jack, and Scott. Just saw Migration, the newest movie from Illumination, which of course was preceded by the short Mooned, which didn't feature any new Minions, but we did see Ken from Panic at the Mailroom, Chris from the Minions movie, and Cinco from the Who's Who TikToks. First off, sorry for the weird audio here. I was a dummy and forgot my mic at home that day, but I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the Minion Cinco. Might seem like a weird name at first, but doing some more research, this fellow was probably named after one of Illumination's go-to screenwriters, Cinco Paul, whose work includes The Lorax, Secret Life of Pets, and of course the Despicable Me franchise. If you still think it's weird that this seemingly white guy is named Cinco, he was evidently named after the holiday he shares his birthday with, Christmas. Just thought that was interesting. Alright, now back to this weird looking son of a bitch. Those are the Minions.
Do the thing.
I'm not gonna do the thing.
Do it.
Oh yeah, Vector baby.
Brian is the unfortunate star of a Cinemark Theaters ad, which co-promoted the Minions film. Speaking of commercials, Charlie and Barry are pointed out by name at the start of the commercial for the now disabled Minions Paradise mobile game. Both these characters are also in the game itself apparently, but that's according to the very untrustworthy Despicable Me wiki. People just make it up on there. It's unbelievable. They just spread misinformation like that's okay. You all should be ashamed of yourselves. Absolutely disgusting.
Close your yapper!
Oh.
But it looks like it's all I have left at this point. The Despicable Me wiki names a ton of Minions that I couldn't confirm, so as little as I trust this terrible, ad-ridden, fandom garbage website, let's count them up. Unless I figure out it's a blatant mistake or just total bullshit, which honestly I might count that anyway, because I am getting desperate here. As you probably noticed, I've been typing these names out in green, but for stuff that's presented as fact online, but I couldn't confirm in the actual media itself, I'll be typing that in orange. Okay, starting at the top, there is Aaron from the AMC Theaters policy video. There is Adian, who is apparently the star of a couple of the Saturday Morning Minion shorts. Alex is the protagonist of Minions and Monsters, the NBC mini movie, who I honestly at first thought was just Bob, but he is indeed slightly different than Bob, featuring 2 blue eyes and some hair. There's Andrew, who's said to be in Minions Rise of Gru, and Arthur, who's eating popcorn in a promotional spot for the same movie. Benjamin dances with the boogie robots in the original Despicable Me, and also passes out from the fart gun. There's Bert from the aforementioned Orientation Day short. Bobo, Matthew, Thomas, and Luke, all very biblical names, are evidently in the Minions Xfinity advertisements, as well as Walter. Brad is apparently in all 3 of the current Despicable Me films, as well as the shorts Banana and Minion Scouts. Buck wears a pot of spaghetti on his head throughout the 3rd Despicable Me. Butch, his credits include the Minions movie, Orientation Day, and the Saturday Morning Minion episode Gumball Machine. Chuck appears in Home Makeover, a bonus short from the Despicable Me Blu-ray release, as well as the previously mentioned Banana, plus old Chuckleberry Finn here is said to show up in the Minions movie. Cody is the one apparently donning an afro and beard in Despicable Me 2's beach scenes. There's Dan, one of the stars of Minion Scouts, but there's also Danny, who's in Rise of Gru. There's Darwin, who's in both the Banana short as well as Despicable Me 2. Devin shrinks down the weapons in Home Makeover. Another Minion that seems to only appear in that short is Vincent. And as far as the rest of the Ds, there's Donald and Douglas, who are apparently featured in nearly every film in the series. Edgar is helping out with the Tupperware party when the Vicious Six rips the roof off the place. There's Ethan. Wait, what the hell? Why is it doing the space? What the... Oh well, who cares? Alright. There's Ethan, who is hanging out with Adrian near the start of Rise of Gru. One that's especially interesting is Eukarya, who appears in the competition short, and I believe is named, whether accurately or not, up to you to decide, after a character in a Dr. Seuss Halloween special starring the Grinch, which is entitled Halloween is Grinch Night. We do know the Illumination Grinch film was in production for a while before it was released, being announced 5 years before it actually hit theaters. So the timeline here makes a little sense despite the lack of actual proof. Finn and James fight with a shark while the minions are working for Blackbeard's gay ass. This and another scene featuring a knight that stabs himself were cut from the Minions movie, with the only trace of the former online being this hashtag Shark Week Facebook post, which was posted a day before the Minions movie hit theaters. These scenes were obviously meant to be at the beginning of the movie, but my guess is they were cut because the knight stabs himself. It's just too much for a children's film. Frank is in Home Makeover and Orientation Day, a resume also shared by Gerald. Fred is in Minion Scouts. Gaetano. There's no way I said that right. Gaetano can be seen using a hammer with Lionel in Despicable Me. Gary is a heck of a marketer, apparently, appearing in both the Xfinity and Cinemark commercials. Gene, Nick, Paxton, and Jackson all show up in Despicable Me 3. This guy from Despicable Me 3 is supposedly named Pudgy, but I don't know, that seems mean. I am not thrilled with myself for that one. There's George and Jim from Despicable Me 2. Plus there is Gilbert, Owen, Stan, Robin, Justin, Ricky, Kyle, Pierce, Greg, Lucas, Nolan, Wayne, Benny, Sean, Vegas, Gordon, and Nate. All from Rise of Gru, allegedly. Ivan is the name of this minion from early concept art. But how? What? Where are they getting this information? Whatever. Moving on. Joel was working with Trevor in the original Despicable Me. There's Jake, who's evidently the dungeon master of the game in Minions and Monsters. He features that super round design that used to be exclusively Otto's, but Jake doesn't have braces, unlike... Craig is the name of one of the poor buddies that turns evil in the second Despicable Me, being used throughout the promotional material. There's Kurt, who's in those TikTok shorts, but this is the evidence. Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess that has to be something, right? Not any of the names I listed earlier in that way. So sure, Kurt. The Blu-ray version of Despicable Me 2 contained another bonus, Training Wheels, and that featured Lewis. Mason appears in both Home Makeover and Minion Scouts. Nathan shows up in all the Despicable Me movies as well as the first Minions movie, seeming to find himself caught up in the antics of all 4 of these films. Noah is another one they cite being in the Who's Who TikToks, with this being the evidence. You know what, this is actually pretty plausible based on that image. I'm rating this sucker in green. Yeah, you can't stop me. Noah. Oscar is in Despicable Me 2, as well as Rise of Gru and the Banana Short, but weirdly enough, not in Pierre Coffin's trophy case. Pedro is in the first 2 Despicable Me films, and Ted is one of the stars of the Crow Minions short, which, like Competition, can be found on the Blu-ray release of Minions. There's this for sure fan-made video, How Many Minions Can You Name?, that's weirdly cited a ton on the Despicable Me wiki. In there they misspell Larry as Laurie, with just 1 R, but if the wiki uses this video as a source and we're using that wiki, we gotta add old Laurie boy to the list. The video also says that this guy is named Steve, which puts us at 147. Oh my god, we're not even close. I guess it's up to me to name the rest of these bad boys, so here we go. I'm gonna be typing these in red, which means...
I made it the f*** up.
There's Miles, Nelson, Dustin, Eel, Saul, Kevon, Rob, Travis, Gru Jr. So this naming a minion Gru Jr. joke isn't really funny anymore, because while I was finishing up editing this video, the Despicable Me 4 trailer finally dropped. which of course includes Gru's infant son named
Gru Jr.
But lucky for me, we also meet a brand new canon minion who's named
Ron.
So let me delete Gru Jr. and add our boy Ron. All that being said, try not to think about the fact that I said the next one was Gru the Third, Franklin, Jeb, Dick, Richard, Mikey, Nick, Ned, Nard, Timothy, Teddy, Tedithy, Bartholomew, Mortimer, Edward, Jacob, Jarvis, Jeeves, Blaze, Laser, Blazer, Poncho, Lefty, and the last 50 are all named Jimmy. Thank you and good night. Hold up, wait, don't go yet. I'm sorry, I don't want to do this every video, but I thought of this and I didn't know where else to add it. Gru has a brother named Drew, but Gru's first name isn't Gru, it's Felonious, meaning his brother is Drew Gru.